You're going to see your
She's
dog?
created for the night.
Oh,
She
we're
stays
live.
outside all day long with me, so.
Oh. Hi, everybody. I was just asking Kit about her dog if we'd see it on camera, but I think she's gone to sleep for the night. And I want to welcome everybody to Ghost Stories. Tonight's going to be a lot of fun because it's our personal ghost stories, which tend to be really stranger than a lot of things you can read on the internet. I want to say hi to everybody. Our guest today is Kit Adams, psychic medium, who is on social media, Facebook, also on the Dead Talk and Psychic Fixes. So, Kit, hi.
Hello.
Kit.
Hi,
Thanks for
everybody.
coming on. Hi, Brandi. How are you?
I'm doing much better this time.
Oh, good. Good.
I'm glad everybody, and very appreciative of everybody that wished me get well.
We all sent nice prayers and everything. Hi, you guys. I see people coming in. And hi, Cara.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing good. I just am a hot mess today.
We all have those days.
I wrote all over myself in pen. I guess my pen is possessed. I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
At least it didn't explode on me.
Well, I'm excited because we all have some ghost stories to tell. But Cara, you grew up in a lot of moving to different places, and the houses that you were in, were all of them haunted?
Every one of them was haunted. I couldn't even get away from it on vacation. We would go to my aunt's house in Tennessee. She had a big, it's actually a hotel. And I managed to catch ghosts there too. So
Well, they must have been attracted to you, or you're a sensitive, and you could, see them or hear them, no matter where you are.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, tonight we're going to get started in just a minute. Let's do what we need to do, and I'm going to share a photo. Kara, so I'm going to let you tell everybody what this is about.
Oh, this is my very first book that I published a couple months ago. The Shadows of Satan, Terror in the Mountains. Satan is more of a metaphor for the evil that people do. Satan is not hanging out. We don't have Satanists in there, nothing like that. But it's a really good book. It's very dark. It's got twists and turns, and you don't know what Katie is seeing, if it's real, if it's imagined, or if it's supernatural.
Well, congratulations on that. That's exciting. We have this also, if I can bring this one up. We have a book that's come out. It's The Past Lives of Deborah O'Hara, Portals Through Time, that Kara and I wrote, and it is for sale. Both of the books are for sale on Amazon. Thank you. And also you can order it at Barnes & Noble. So anyway, it's a time travel, supernatural, fun book. So we hope that you go and pick those up for a good read and leave us a review.
I have a question.
Sure.
On Amazon, is that also available on digital download? Because I've had people ask.
Yes, it is in the Kindle, the e-file.
The e-reader.
And if they have Kindle Unlimited, it's free.
Oh, awesome.
So a bonus. Also hardcover, which I happen to have right here. Hardcover and paperback. So thank you, Kit.
And
Okay, so
we're also in several LGBTQ bookstores.
Isn't that great? We are. Our book is got so many great elements to it, and so we have strong women. We have. Thank you, Cara, for your great memory and that historical info in your computer brain, because we have historically correct events in there, and it's just so interesting, something for everyone. And we're very proud to be bringing into our books characters that gay characters and more things you're going to see along that line. I'm not going to give all the secrets away, but
No.
Point out that our illustrator graduated yesterday.
yes, Rebecca Wheeler, our wonderful graphics person and illustrator of our books, graduated. So congratulations. Hi, Carlos.
Hello, Carlos.
Hi, Carlos.
So let's get down to business, which are ghosts. And we're going to start with Kit. Kit has a story to tell.
Well, many years ago, 20 years ago, I left a domestic violence situation, and I was staying with a friend of mine. And my ex-husband didn't live far away from where I was staying, so I was always just like worried he was going to like show up. And my friend and his grown son, they were bartenders, so they weren't there at night, but he also had a huge German Shepherd. And what kind of dog? Jack Russell Terrier. I know it's terrier, but they're terriers. They really are. And I always just figured if somebody came in that wasn't supposed to be there, that the dogs would bark. But one night I felt weird. I went to bed. I had a 12-hour shift the following day, and I went to bed, and it was just like starting to get dark out because it was like June. So, it stays light really late in June. And I just felt like somebody was watching me. And I just, pretended like I was sleeping, and I turned over and just like cracked one eye open. And there's a guy standing there.
Oh my God.
Just standing at the end of my bed, not doing anything. And I'm just like, okay, just pretend he's not there. Act really cool, don't do anything. So I'm laying there and I'm talking to myself, and I'm like, who could it be? I couldn't, think of who it could be. Because it didn't fit the description of you just lay there and you're racking your brain for like the physical descriptions of all the men you know. And I know that sounds really bad. No, I used to go fishing, and I only know guys that go fishing. So it just wasn't anybody that I knew. So then I start I cough, and I feel like I start acting like restless. And then poof, he disappeared. So I call the guy's house that I live in, and I'm like, listen, do you have your house key on you? Because I'm locking the door. Because they had a habit of not locking the doors.
Oh.
Don't ask. And we figure, it's a big German Shepherd. He's 125 pounds. Who is going to mess with that if you come through the door? And he's like, yeah, why? And I go, because I just saw somebody standing at the end of my bed. And he goes, well, it's not your ex-husband because he's here in the bar. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Besides, the guy was shorter. My ex-husband was really tall. He was like 6'2". This guy was shorter. He was probably about 5'9", 5'10". And he goes, is he still there? And I go, no. And I go, all right, I got to go to bed. I have to get up early. And he goes, okay, lock the door. You'll be fine. So I lock the door. I creep downstairs. I lock the door. German Shepherd is at the front door. And I don't know if he felt like my anxiety or what, but he went upstairs with me. And Dave, the guy whose house I lived in, freaked out when he came home because he went to take the dogs out, because he comes home at 2:30 in the morning, and he can't find the German Shepherd anywhere. And of course, the German Shepherd's up in my room. That dog never went up those stairs since he lived there. And Dave had lived in the house for 3 years by then. The dog was getting older, so he just didn't do the stairs. He always went in my room after that. But what Dave didn't bother to tell me was the people that owned the house before Dave, their son, the house, it was really weird because it was like an upstairs, downstairs, like all one house, but the upstairs was set up. So like the room I was in would have been a kitchen.
Oh, wow.
And the guy that lived with his parents in the house before, he had committed suicide. And that's where they found the body hanging, right directly there in front of that, like, because the old sink was still there,
Oh,
right there. I was like, thanks for telling me. He goes, well, he did. He goes, you're the creepy little blonde girl. We talked it. So, why would I tell you? I'm like, it's nice to know, but
Yes.
like I said, I just
Oh
was
my
like,
gosh.
it was just like weird, because you're like, who could it be? Because I didn't, and he didn't talk to me or anything.
Kit, my niece was in her house and she was a kid, a teenager. She walked into her bedroom and there was a guy sitting on the upper bunk. She's like, what the heck? And he disappeared. And so she knew that there was a guy in that room. And so my sister went around to find out what was going on. And they said, oh, a young kid, a boy, committed suicide in that house. And apparently, probably in that room. So they do hang out in that, where they did the deed. Maybe they're just waiting until the tunnel comes or something like that. And oh, good. Look at what Jesse says. Jesse says, I have crazy stories that I would love to share. I grew up in a house where paranormal activity was normal. Well, we have a segue to Cara, but Jesse, we'd love to have you on. Just private message me at psychicfixes@gmail and we'll get you on to talk about your stories. We encourage that. We love all of that. Kit,
yes.
did you have something else to add about your story?
No, just that, I just felt so bad that he's just hanging out there and, nobody was gonna, because I had already moved out by the time they told me what had happened.
Oh,
I was like, well, you got to help him, move on. And he's like, no. I'm like, well, I'll come over and do it. He's like, no, it's fine. You're the only person that's seen him.
yeah. Well, we always hope that people get crossed over. But now let's go to Cara. I think, Cara, you were next, and all the adventures in the haunted houses with Cara.
Well, I am going to start with the very first house that I ever lived in. My parents were married in 1959, and at first they lived on the third floor of my grandparents' apartment building, which, by the way, also was haunted. But the house next door to my grandparents came up for sale. It was a small little house, and my parents had 2 kids, I believe, at the time, and they bought the house. And there had been a older man who had lived in in the basement of the house. There was a bedroom in the basement, which the basement creeped the hell out of me. I will not lie. But he disappeared one day, and they just didn't see him. He used to sit out there every day, and he just disappeared. And then the house came up for sale. The people, I believe they were his relatives, sold the house. The strange thing in the basement was, 90% of the basement was concrete, and there was one part that was dirt, which I always felt something there. And later on, because I never met the man, because I was born 10 years later, but my dad had said that he always wondered if they had done something, killed him and took his retirement checks or something. But the house itself had a creepy vibe to it. But I remember being 2 years old, and I know people are going to say, what, 2? I was about 2.5. And my brothers shared the front bedroom, the 3 of them, and my sister and I shared this middle bedroom. And then my parents were in the basement. Their bedroom was in the basement. But I would get woke up all the time in the middle of the night. My mom thought I was a night owl or something. But after everyone was in bed, I would be woke up by two little girls who wanted to play. And there was a crawl space above the basement stairs that led all the way through the house. And they always wanted me to go up there and play with them. And they would giggle and they would talk to me and stuff. I couldn't get up there myself at 2.5. You had to be an adult to get up there. But I just remember playing with these little girls. And I remember, when my dad would be working. He was a police officer, so his shifts always changed. And my mom would be, one of them would walk her down to her bedroom sometimes. But I just remember wanting to go down and see my mom, in the middle of the night or whatever. And I was terrified. I would walk down the stairs, which were concrete. We're talking an old Chicago house. So the basements were not very, modern. And you walk through the laundry room to get to my parents' bedroom. And I was terrified to walk that little hallway. I can't even say it was much of a hallway to get to my mother's bedroom to go by her, because I felt something so dark and so insidious in that basement. But I still remember it. I can close my eyes and still see the two little girls. I can describe their dresses, which were way before my time. They had to be, 40s, 30s, maybe. But it was very, very scary. Not the little girls, but the whatever the entity was that was living in the basement.
Yeah, a lot of times you'll find things in the basement, and a lot of people will say attic, but my experience is if there's a basement, there's something in it.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That was a good one. And do you have another one before we go to Brandi?
Oh, I've lived in several houses, so you pick a house, pick a year, and I'll tell you about the house I lived in.
A teenager time.
Okay, that would be our house on Gunnison in Chicago. My parents bought a house from the Weber family, and it was interesting that they were all over the newspapers in the 40s because I think 6 of their sons went off to war. They all enlisted. And at the time, our house back then, like Lawrence Avenue, really was just a dirt road. It wasn't a Chicago street in the 40s. So they still had a barn. By the time we bought it, all of that was built up and there was a factory behind us. But the old man Weber is what we call him. I don't know his first name, old man Weber. He had been baling hay in his barn, and he caught a rat on the end of it. And he thought it was dead. So he hopped it off by the tail and was carrying it in the house to show his children what he snagged. And it was alive and it bit him. And I don't know if it was rabies or infection that got him, but he died. And he was laid out in our living room years before we bought the house, but he was laid out in our living room. And when my parents bought that house, my parents actually, and my dad was, on and off skeptic with spirits. They actually had a seance in the house to figure out what the hell was going on in this house.
I love that. Do you know anything about it?
I don't know if they, I know I heard some screams in there. I was too young. I was 5 years old. I was too young to be invited to the seance, but I sure as hell was feeling a creepy feeling in the kitchen while they were in the dining room performing this seance. But there was always something negative, especially again in that basement. I really don't have a thing for basements, but that basement was also terrifying to me. Even when I had my bedroom down there as a teenager, I had to have every damn light in the basement on just to get to my bedroom. It was terrible. And the attic too. The attic was my parents' bedroom. It was not really an attic, it was a second floor. And my parents' bedroom was the entire floor. And I was terrified there too. If I went to sleep with my mom when my dad was out of town and she got up in the morning or got up in the middle of the night or anything, I was so afraid to walk out of there. I almost peed my pants trying to race to the stairs to get down the stairs to where my mother was. Even in the daytime, there were different things. The worst part was moving things on us. My brother was a Marlboro Red smoker, and we used to watch horror films all the time. We'd order pizza on the weekends, and we would sit back and watch some horror films. And this one night, my brother asked me when I went in the kitchen for something, would you bring my cigarettes? And I said, where are they? And he said, they're by the TV. My mom had a little rinky-dink TV, black and white, in the kitchen. And I said, no, they're not. And he said, yes, they are. And he came in and he said, what'd you do with my cigarettes? I'm like, they weren't here. They weren't there. And my mom said, have one of mine. We went and sat down and everything. And we went, oh yeah, basements. Yes, they are all creepy, I tell you. And the pizza came. So we heard a knock on the door. My brother went to go get the pizza. His cigarettes were back in the exact same spot with the lighter on top. Nobody had been in that kitchen because our front door was the kitchen door. Nobody had been in that room. We were in the living room waiting for the pizza to come. But his cigarettes were back.
I think it's a normal thing. We had that all the time. I still do. And I just ask the spirits, when you're done with it, put it back. Or I need it now, so bring it. But if I know, something, was there, I just talk to them. They're pretty good at bringing it back, but that's a spooky stuff. But, people find that really creepy. The level that we tolerate, is pretty high. It doesn't faze us when something moves or flies through my house or anything like that. Disembodied voice or the hag in my bedroom or anything like that. So, I just talk to them like, don't wake me up or, bring it back. I need this. Don't know what you need with hairspray, but can you bring it back?
I could have used that advice 30 years or 40 years ago when I was dealing with it. I might have said something.
Should we go to Brandi and maybe come back to you, Cara, later?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Brandi.
Hello.
So I know you have a ghost story.
Oh, well, yeah. So this would be back when, before my mom and my stepdad got together. So I was probably about 8, and my grandpa had bought my mom a house. Now, I love my grandpa, but he would do some crazy things. And the house that he bought my mom, he saw it in the paper for sale, bought it sight unseen for my mom. Never even went and looked at this house. So we had no backstory on this house, knew nothing about the house. Mom moved us into it, and it was an old house. It had shag carpet still. It had the avocado colored appliances, and it was an older house. And the first night we stayed there just to give context here, it was Mom and me and my brother, my older brother. And I had the bedroom furthest away from my mom, and then it was my brother, and then it was Mom. And I woke up in the middle of the night just feeling a little creepy, and there was enough light coming into my room from the front room area that you could see shadows being cast up on my wall, right? And there was a big shadow of what looked to be a man, right? Arms upstretched over his head and all that, creepy looking. And I just assumed automatically that was my brother trying to scare me. So I screamed for my mom. Mom, Chad's doing it again, because Chad was always trying to scare me. And Mom comes running in my room ready to give Chad what for. Chad was asleep. It wasn't Chad. So Mom told me it was just my imagination and to go back to sleep, it was fine. Okay, so the next night it happened again, and I once again screamed for my mom, telling her Chad was at it again. Chad was asleep. So
Poor
for a
Chad.
week straight, this happened, right? I kept screaming for mom, and it was never Chad. Chad was always asleep. So I eventually stopped screaming for mom because mom probably thought I was going insane at this point. I probably was, now that I think about it. But it kept happening every night that we lived in that house. It was always that scary, and you could literally see it just start creeping up the wall because it got to the point where I wouldn't go to sleep, and I'd watch this shadow start creeping up the wall, and I would get up and start looking around the whole house trying to figure out what is causing this shadow. There was literally nothing that could cause this shadow on my wall.
Oh God.
And then I'd just start laying in my bed and watching, and it would start moving around my room. And not like the same pattern every night. It would change up. I never found out what caused that
Oh my
shadow,
gosh.
but I never could sleep
Oh my
in that
goodness.
room.
So energy can go into rooms, and I'll tell you, my experience. I send out protection to people, and I would send out white light to be in the house. And I'm going to tell you that I was doing that every night. And my worried sister called me one day, and she said, "Debbie, something weird's going on at my house." And what's happening? Like, what's happening? I'm ready. And she said, "There's hanging white light in the living room. And we have the blackout drapes, and we have this, and we got nothing on and no light. We look everywhere, and white light is hanging in the room." And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry I did that." And that's when I knew that you can push that energy and have it somewhere. And I had my poor sister, going like, "What? This is spooky. We're too old for this," And I said, I was just putting some protection in and some white light. But I do have someone who has a question here. So let me go ahead and bring this up and get your guys' take on there. Your opinions, you guys. Does a red light attract the spiritual world?
No.
Uh-uh.
No.
I wouldn't say it attracts anything from the spirit world, but I think that a lot of different lights in general can attract energy maybe that is already there. Maybe they're attracted to just the brightness, but I don't think a specific color or anything like that would ever attract like a.
I agree. I have never done anything like that and never experienced that. When they're attracted to all kinds of things, and it can be energy, good vibrations, or dark, sad vibrations, fear, or just looky loos. I have them come in and out all the time, and I said, "It's just a looky loo. It's fine. I don't have a bad vibe, so it's okay." But Kate says you use it in the cabinet for transfiguration. So when people do seances, I have a purple light on right now. We love to set the mood, and we don't want a lot of bright things when you are doing seances or asking spirits to come in and materialize. So, that's why they can use, different, red or total darkness or whatever they're doing, or candlelight. So, but to me, they come. And a lot of people you're looking at 4 psychic people here, and especially Cara, they are attracted and they want to come because they want to communicate. That's the biggest thing. If it's an energy imprint, that's one thing. You can't communicate with that. But if it is a spirit, and of course there's other things out there besides just old ghosts, then they are wanting to communicate and hear my story. And we get that when we go to the cemeteries. They want to hear the story. And so and then maybe you can cross them over. But I think right now we're all kind of going probably no on that. You're welcome. And so Kate loves your wall hanging.
Thank you, Kate. Yeah, I changed that. I have to wash the other one.
I have I have a real scary thing, and I'm kind of looking like, which should I do? I think I should go for the scary thing. I see ghosts all the time, and a lot of people think that, oh, I have to go to that house because that's where the ghosts are. Well, yeah, but they also will come in and out, or they will be attracted and come in and say hi, or do some. Again, we have demons, we have darker things. We call them scrabblies and gumbies and stuff. Those are not things that are. What, you have a story
about those?
Okay, scrabblies or gumbies
Yes.
or what?
Yes.
Go ahead, Kit.
Well, when I worked at a factory, and we all know factories, it's usually a creepy building.
Yeah.
They can try to like paint the inside and prove it, and it just doesn't work. I worked at a factory a long time ago, and it was on the 3rd floor all the way to the other side of the building. And that was my cardio for the day. I would walk into work, and no matter what part of the season it was, summer, winter, whatever, it was just cold the minute you walked through. And I didn't really think much of it. I'm like, all right, it's an old building, there's a draft. But like, I'd be working, and out of the corner of my eye, I'd see these little black blobs, and I didn't know what they were called until I read your book. And I was like, well, that's a cute name for something that just is not cute in any way, shape, or form. So, and I would see that, and there was like 3 of them. And again, I was like, all right, that's not good. As long as they don't get any higher, I'll just walk around it, and they never did get any higher. They usually stayed, about like this here, from this is the floor to here. But I never knew I just called them black blobs. I'm like, I don't know what those little black floaty blobby things are, but I just, no.
Well, they're called scrabblies.
Yeah.
And sometimes they can look like a jellyfish crab thing. And they can't hurt anything. They're attracted to when something happened there. So fear, sadness, grief, and they feed off of that. So if they stay a certain size, nothing else has been happening. It's just there. But they can grow. And if it's a house or something where bad stuff happens and continues, then they can get bigger. Then we're looking at little, like where people say, oh, I see a little shadow child. Hey. Yeah. That's a Gumby. And if it gets big, and we call it a Gumby because it has that shape. And they can get very tall, and they can take orders from the dark side. So we don't want to mess with those. When we watch those paranormal shows and they go, I got scratched, I got bit, or whatever, those are usually the Gumbies. They will go after them. And so there are a lot of things out there, you guys. And so that's what you encountered. It can tend, if you stayed in that area, it could be very depressing. And so this stuff can make people sad or bring them down or put them in depression, depending how many they have. So it's a good thing that you were, just going around it.
Yeah, I would just go around it. But there was people make up stories about old buildings, and I mean, they'll make up things about, because it's an old building, just to scare other people. And people on other floors would be like, there was a major fire and 3 people died on your floor. And I'm like, yeah. And then I started seeing those little black things, and I'm just like, oh, I guess maybe it's not a rumor. But a lot of, other people that work there, like before I started, they'd be like, oh, don't pay attention to any of the rumors and so on and so forth. And I'm like, I'm telling you.
Yeah, you saw it.
Something happened there.
Yeah. Oh. And they'll be like little inky. I was in a cemetery, and I was doing the protection because I make all this stuff, and I go out and I, take care of the bad stuff. And I happened to be standing looking towards the building, and a medium came over and said, do you see that? And I said, yes. I'll take care of it. And so you can see this inky stuff, black, jet black, inky stuff going in the bushes. So I go up and I make scrabbly juice. You might as well laugh when you have to do this stuff, you know. And so you guys, this is wild rue, R-U-E, if you can get the seed, and any kind of salt. And I crush up sage, like white sage, and I make my mixture and I take it. I'm like really taking things out. I'm
Well, the
careful.
recipe is in your book.
Yeah, right.
Little Book of Big Evil.
Oh, right. I got protective magic out too, so I've got stuff in there. So anyway, I went and took care of it, but it can look like the floating ink, and it travels. So you guys got to be careful. Jessie has an interesting thing, and let's look at that. Jessie, I love this. Thank you for coming from YouTube. I used to see a woman when I was a kid. You saw her about 3 times in your life. The crazy part is when you first saw her, it was traumatizing experience, of course. And then you told your mother, and she told me that she used to see her too. Oh my gosh, when she was a kid.
Yeah.
So great validation, and that's something that we want to know about is, you know, somebody else see this, you know. A lot of times, you guys, when you see something, it can be explained. So, you know, it's great to have a witness for sure, you know, all that stuff. Okay, let me get to, do you guys want the scary one, the Shadow Man?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, I lived in, we're going to be talking about all our haunted houses. So I grew up in a rural town, and we had a house on a hill, and it was nothing around it. It had an old battlefield there. A battle was there. But anyway, it was scary. We had fireballs that would chase my sister, only my sister. And my dad would be there, I'd be there, and here's this big ball of fire going after her. We're like, what do you do? You know, she runs to that back room where it was her bedroom. So we had all kinds of weird stuff happen in that house. But I used to scare her too. Being a psychic, you can really mess with your siblings because she would come in to scare me from the other room, and she'd get right here, and it's jet black, and I'd say, "Hi, Shirley," and just scream. So it was good being a psychic. But besides all those kind of crazy things, she told me years ago, she goes, "You know what? When I was in that bedroom, my bedroom, I was laying there one night, and all these little shadow guys with cloaks and hoodies came on the sides of her bed." And then she said it was so scary. And then this big, tall one came and went and stood up at the foot of her bed. And then he came down on top of her, like to smother her. And she got under the covers, and it was scary. But she said they used to come, and there's little like minions, you know. And I thought, wow, that was weird. Why didn't you ever tell me? So anyway, years go by, and my sister and her kids had been living in the house, but they grew up. And I was talking to my niece, and she goes, "You know what happened to me in the bedroom of the house, the Hunter house?" And I go, "What?" She said, one night I had all these little shadow guys, you know, in cloaks with hoods. And I'm like, I think I've heard this one. And then she goes, I didn't know what to do. I was so scared, and I just wanted to get under, and they were smothering. And a big tall one came up, and she said, I didn't know what to do. She freaking invited the little guys to get in bed with her.
Oh,
Please, no inviting anything. And so they all clambered up. She said, I couldn't breathe, and this big one went down like this on me, and I couldn't breathe. It was so scary. And I said, you need to go talk to your aunt, because this happened 20 years ago or so to her. And anyway, that was really one of the real scary things. It doesn't mess with me. Things don't mess with me. So they knew to mess with her. I tell you, when we're I was in the cemetery, and we had a really angry spirit, and I was away from everybody. I was being kept away. Some girl was talking to me about this, and this, and everybody was over there walking, and then I heard a yell, and I went, and the people behind the one lady with the cane told me, and the lady said I was pushed. Nobody was there, but she was pushed all the way, almost down. She caught herself and got up, and the people could see her pushed. And so you have to be careful. There are some that are upset, angry, and they will go and say, "Which is the weakest link?" I'm going to go mess with them. So, guys, know that you can yell at them and tell them what you want them to do and leave you alone or whatever. But that was a scary house. It was sold, and I went to it, and I got to go in. The lady let me in. She redid the whole house, and it had really great energy in it. But it wasn't for a long time. When we lived there, it was always crazy stuff happening. And it was just, ghosts coming in. We didn't know. Now, I will tell you that my mother was a cook and my great aunt at a spiritualist colony. So I did grow up in knowing what was going on. And my first seance, scared that what out of me. So a spirit dog, got a hold of my pant leg. I'm like, hello, what's going on? Running around and around, and let's mess with Debbie, and round and around. And that was scary because there was an elderly woman in which a man's voice came through. Booming voice out of this little old lady, and he said he was a Native American, and it was really, it was my first experience. I'm going, what the heck is going on? Just get me out of here alive, God, and so since I'm good, I conduct them now. But yeah, I've got a lot of ghosts, but let me see the time. I think I could do a little one. I was doing ghost tours at the 10th Avenue Theater, downtown San Diego, and I was supposed to do it. And first time I'm walking in, and I have to wait for somebody to get there that I know, and then I'll be learning how to do ghost tours. And I was sitting in there, and a man walked through. Now, this is a theater, live theater. And I'm looking, and a man walked through in a lion costume. And he had a space between his teeth and glasses. And I knew in my gut that he was English. And then I looked at him, and he looked very much like an actor called Terry Thomas. And then he morphed into his own face. And then I realized I was seeing a ghost. So the people came and whatever, and I said, you know what? You got a British guy that's walking around in a lion costume. He's very, comfortable here. I think he's been here for a long time. And they laughed, and they had frames all over the 4 stories. And the one right there was about the British ghost. And he was a soldier. And he had a whole story. But I said, well, he rather likes the theater because he's in costume. So lots of fun. A lot of times it's amusing, or we have lovely people, or we have trouble, and it can be dangerous. So always do protection. Something came to me the other day to make sure I'm telling people that before they leave, they need to do a lot of protections. They need to say nobody can go home with you, because we have a lot of trouble with people bringing things home. And lots of stories about that. But anyway, I think that's one of them. At some point, I'll tell you guys about Hat Man in the basement of that building. But Cara, did you have any more that you want to talk? You can take over now.
I do have to say about Jesse seeing the old woman. When I was a child, whenever I was sick and I was running a high fever, I would hallucinate. My mom said that I would be living out scenes like shark infested waters or different things. But there was a reoccurring one that I remember. I can close my eyes. I can actually see and describe the little girl's dress in detail. It was this little girl wearing a pink dress with some gold sequins, and the bottom was this poofy crinoline type material. And she always had a long gold sword. And I would be staring at her, and she would raise that sword to decapitate me.
Oh,
Yes, and I would wake up or jump or scream or whatever before she actually hit me with it. But that was something that throughout my whole childhood I had those hallucinations, and that little girl, and I don't know if she was a spirit or if it was just a hallucination, but it was something that was quite scary. Um, but I'll actually talk about the um, demon house, I call it.
I wanted you to see this, Cara.
Oh,
Can you read it, or you want me to read it?
yeah, we all saw the man that lived in the bathroom cupboard. He was nearly 7 foot tall and walked through my husband's legs and made my then Cocker Spaniel Ben's hair stand up on end. But he came to introduce himself. He meant no harm.
Wow.
That's very interesting. Well, they always say gentle giant, so
That was great, Kate.
yes.
Okay, Cara, I'm sorry. I
No,
just thought that was interesting. I want to get it in there before the end of the show.
Oh, that's fine. My ex and I moved into a 2-bedroom. It was a 2-bedroom that we rented, but it also had a basement with another full like living room with a faux fireplace and another bedroom and another kitchen. It had a summer kitchen. And in the bedroom, in the closet of the bedroom, was this opening. We didn't know what the hell it was. And it looked like it just went on and on and on forever. But I couldn't be in that basement alone. If I had to do laundry, I had to drag my son downstairs with his friends to play. He was about 5 years old. And they had to play downstairs with me while I was doing laundry because it terrified me. Something was emanating from that room, from that closet. Something completely evil, demonic, something. It literally terrified me. And there was one time when she was out of town on business and she needed me to fax something. Well, guess where our fax machine was? It was down. Yes, she used that bedroom in the basement as an office. So my son is sound asleep. I can't wake him up. He's got school in the morning. I walked down there, turned on every light in the basement, and then had a flashlight with me. And I kept flashing the light into that closet every so often because I was terrified. And the fax just wouldn't go through. And I'm like, and she's like, well, you have to hang up the phone with me in order for it to go through. Okay, by the way, this is the 90s. We didn't have cell phones roaming around. So I had to hang up the house phone to get this fax to go through, which meant I was in that room by myself until the fax went through. And I felt something on the back of my neck. I could hear breathing, but there's nothing there, just a dark space. And as soon as that puppy went through, I ran. I got the confirmation. I called her back on the phone, ran up the stairs as the phone was dialing, and I said, don't you ever, ever make me go down in that basement alone again. If you need something faxed, you damn well better do it before our son's in bed. There was something so heavy and dark in that house, and I had very vivid dreams and premonitions. I dreamt of one of my close friends being murdered by her husband, and it happened. He killed her and two of her children and himself.
Oh my gosh.
But I saw it. I saw how he walked through the house. It was like I was like
There.
on his shoulder watching.
Did you have that nightmare or vision the time that it was happening in real life, or was it precognition?
It was well, it was a day or two before, and we were meant to go over to their house for a barbecue. And all of a sudden I got really bad cramps and she didn't feel good, and we canceled. And that's the day that it happened. It was actually as we were driving home and passing the street that they lived on is when it was happening. Something kept me from going to that house because we would have arrived there.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times the spirits or your guides or an angel will block your way and have you go somewhere else. When I go to drive and I can't get on the street, I go, I know you guys are saving me from something, so I'll wait. And thank goodness. That's crazy.
It's one of the that I just felt like the evil from that house just permeated. And I was literally losing my mind in that house.
Yeah.
I was literally having a nervous breakdown. That house was so, I mean, it was a beautiful house, beautiful backyard, 2-car garage. Like I said, it had a big, huge bathroom. It was a gorgeous place. And it was almost like a full apartment in the basement. But I think if I had stayed in that house any longer than we had, I think I would have completely lost my mind and wouldn't have come back.
When we have houses like this, it will affect the kids' mental health, especially teenagers. So it's really important not to be living in a house that has something dark in it. That's for sure.
Yeah, it was not a pleasant. That was not a pleasant ghost. I mean, I've had my share of pleasant ghosts too, and the little, trickery and stuff like that to play with you. But this was something much, much darker. And I always wanted to look up the history of the house. I mean, I still know the exact address of the house. I mean, it's insane. It's been well over almost 25 years. And I can picture every room in the house like I'm walking through it.
I know that a lot of times talking to neighbors, you can get information. The house that was haunted that my sister lived in, that had the little girl ghost that kept getting, letting her daughter out and turning the thermostat up. She was burnt and killed in the house. And she found that out after she saw the apparition of the little girl. She's like, I'm going to the neighbors. And they said a little girl burnt in that middle section of the house is rebuilt. And she was built. That's where she saw her, materialize. And she just packed up and left.
Yeah.
Debbie has a ghost. Mischievous older brother. Oh no, I don't like the pranks. Right? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I didn't mind the I didn't mind the pranks.
Well, you have a lot of stories.
Man, we couldn't even, like I said, there were so many, we couldn't escape it on vacations. I mean, when we rented a farmhouse, because it was the only thing available when we went to take my brother's ashes to bury them. That house that's a half a show, just dealing with what happened at that house to my brother, his wife, my son, my niece, and my parents. We all stayed at this house, but it's too long of a story. We're already towards the end of the show. It's way too long.
We will do that on another show because we want to hear all of that.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Also ties into my Norwegian heritage. It's
Right.
right outside of Decorah, Iowa.
Oh my gosh. I've invited Jesse to be on our show, so
I saw that's yes. I
like
would
to be on it. We love those stories.
yes.
And any kind of stories, you guys, that if you want to be on the show, just let us know. Anything that's weird, UFO, we'll go to Bigfoot, whatever you want. We will talk about that. We love our ghost stories, though.
Yes. We do.
Well, we only have a few more minutes, Cara, so I'm going to give it to you, whatever you want to say. Do we know what we're doing next Saturday and all of that?
I was, thinking I was reading up on a murder that happened 63 years ago. An entire family. And I thought, there are so many houses especially in the Midwest, where there has been something so tragic that has happened that there's just so much paranormal activity. And I thought we should investigate some spooky, tragic homes, and
yeah.
and remember the victims of those tragedies.
Mhm.
Maybe give them a little voice, and maybe they'll move on from the hauntings that they're doing.
Maybe.
Sounds good.
But I thought it would be interesting to look at some of the true, true crime hauntings that are going on.
Okay. That sounds good. But Jesse, if you're here and you want to be on, we'll get you on. I love
Oh
this
yeah,
stuff.
Jesse. Yes, please come on.
It was really great. Well, we're just about at the top of the hour, and this was a lot of fun. And just scratching the surface of the stuff that we've gone through. Oh, you have a message, Kit. Here we go.
No. Oh, she's a regular in my show, and what that is she's doing it to make me laugh. You see the little flames?
Oh,
I have
yes.
to tell people there's a advice I give people. You write this thing down on paper, you burn it, and you send the ashes out into the universe, right?
Mhm.
And I have to remember to tell people practice fire safety. And the very first time she ever watched me, she came in just as I was going, and please remember to practice fire safety. She didn't know where she was. So she was like, no, let me explain. It's because I had a client a long, long time ago. She was in her 40s, and I would have thought, she's in her 40s, that she would have had common sense. She did not. And she was sent to me by a friend of hers, and the friend was the one who contacted me and said, so and so pretty much burnt down her yard.
Oh,
And I
shoot.
said, she goes, doing, the advice you gave her. And I said, what did she do? Write
Oh,
it down?
no.
And she goes, oh, yeah, you told her use as many pages as you wanted to. And she just wrote and wrote and wrote. And I said, oh, my goodness.
Oh no.
So yeah, I never heard from either one of them again. I'm like, it's not my, I didn't, literally the one was like 42, 43 years old. I really didn't know that I had to tell her to use fire safety. So now whenever I give that advice, I say, please use fire safety. And I give suggestions on how to do it.
Yeah, I just did a spell on Psychic Fixes. Call money, you guys, because I have a friend that got the call money incense, and he said, this did very well with me. And I said, well, I'd like to get back to doing some kind of spell work. So I bought the call money, and you get lots of it. And he sat there and he did one after another and another. But I go, you think about it, you can do them all. And it's incense, so we're not going to have flames, right? But I went and I took the dirt and I had it in a in a flower bed container, and I just lined it full of call money incense. Smells really good. Smells like baby powder. And then you set your intention on it and you light it. So if anybody wants to look at that spell, it is on Psychic Fixes. But it does smell good if you want some good incense, and just set the intention for gobs of money to come to you and light it.
Where did you get the incense?
You know, the big box store. No, Amazon. Just put in the internet, call money incense, and everybody sells it. But it's very inexpensive, but they'll send you like boxes of mini in a big thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, now what do I do with it? I'm not, I would give it away, but I'm not sending it through anywhere. So somebody can come pick it up if you're in Southern California, but I'll just put it aside and just keep burning it and see what happens. But he did very well. And he does a lot of spells where he has to go down to the beach and gather shells and, do all this stuff and bury things. So he does all kinds of interesting things. We just have to know that we can do spells without, make it a ceremony. That's for you. If you just go ahead and do it and set your intention on a simple white candle, you're doing the same power. But yeah, so that is the call money spell. And I sprayed everything with water, because I was like, yeah. Well, I'm in Southern California, so if anything burns, it's always Southern California.
Yeah.
So we had lost 350 houses in our community from a real big fire. So yeah. So yes, that's why if you give a candle away, you have the safety burning sticker. You can buy them, and that goes with it. So just kind of cover yourself and show them what to do. This was a lot of fun, you guys. It's time to go. Everybody, you guys stay on, and we're going to say goodbye now to everybody. We had a really good crowd, and come see us on Saturdays. It's always fun. It's always interesting. We will go and tell you about haunted places or what happened to us. So always never ending. And if you have a good story to tell, psychicfixes@gmail.com and come on our show. Hi, Sheila. Okay. Debbie says it is now. It's funny to me. It is. Yes. Okay. Well, all right, you guys. We're going to say goodbye, you guys, to everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.